All right, guys, welcome back to Modern Day Debates. Today we got creation versus evolution. We got Dr. Kent Hovind here, and we got axiomatic reasoning. You okay with me using your name?
Yeah, Bobby's
Yeah,
fine.
we got Bobby from Axiomatic Reasoning. Put a like in the chat, guys, or like the video and drop a comment in the chat. Get it buzzing on the algorithm. Let's get this conversation popping in there. You guys are always full of fun. I do want to remind everyone that if you have a membership, we're streaming all of the DebateCon stuff coming up next week on the channel if you're a member, and you will get to watch all of the streams from all the big debaters there. And then we did add the pregame day, so if you have a ticket for any of the other 2 days, or I think it's a VIP pass, that will get you automatically to be able to go to the day before event with Jay Dyer. And we did add him to, I think, another debate or so on the main days. So if you can't make that one, no worries. You'll be able to see him one of those other days. And last thing, just get a ticket if you can go. That would be great. So without much further ado, we will get into it. We've agreed that Bobby's going to go first here, and we're going to do about a 5-10 minute little wiggle room on the 10 opening. I'm going to start a timer, and Bobby, whenever you're ready, you can get going.
All right, let me pull up some slides or so.
Yep, we're sharing
Let me
screen.
see. Hang on a second. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I'm a little surprised to be here. I'm new to social media. Um, about 6 weeks ago or so, I posted some videos online, and surprisingly, people highly enjoyed the content. So I now find myself looking to talk with other people concerning, things like science and misinformation and various things along those lines. So yeah, I reached out to James and very happy he was willing to let me try out a debate here. And I'm grateful to Ken Hovind. Thank you for agreeing to debate me on short notice. It's very kind of you. Yeah, so a little about me. I'm a mathematician. I work on all kinds of things from neural networks to machine learning to signal processing to various other things. I was a professor for a number of years. I now work in private industry, so work on, proprietary algorithms and such. So yeah, I have a tendency to approach things, I guess, in a little bit more um, modeling type of perspective or mathematical perspective because I'm really interested in mathematics, obviously. And so today, we want to talk a little bit about evolution versus creationism. I find, of course, this topic a little disheartening, simply because, this is, in my opinion, more of a science versus anti-science discussion.
Chicken Bacon Ranch, Zaxby style. Chicken Bacon Ranch, whatever you want. Loaded fries, giant wraps, even quesadillas. A lot of folks make it. Zaxby's perfected it. Zaxby's Chicken Bacon Ranch. Who's got the sauce?
Anatomy, botany, chemistry, biology, various type of modeling, things along those lines. I have some papers to show here and there, I guess, for the presentation. So let me see if I can switch over to that real quick. Uh, mm, mm. So, like, here's, for example, a paper I was looking at earlier today. Um, oh, I gotta switch to this one, browsing. So this is an example of the relationship, or I guess how we conduct ourselves with scientific reasoning and scientific methods. We have a great understanding when it comes to like evolution. In particular, we have, for example, a strong relationship between taxonomical ordering and DNA information, right? So we can do various information techniques on figuring out the relationship of DNA. We can also do various calculations on the relationship of taxonomy, right? So this is a paper that I was looking at that I was like, wow, this is very interesting to me, especially as a mathematician and someone who's done deep neural networks and machine learning. So this particular paper goes through the fact that there's such a strong relationship between the two that we can actually develop machine learning models to try and gain a better understanding of the information within DNA, how to calculate through it, how to figure out the relationships between it, various things along those lines. So here they're talking about BERT AX, which is a new machine learning structure or neural network structure, I should say. They're older. Maybe people are familiar with BERT. It was developed by Google a number of years ago now. So this is the idea of what science looks like, right? We typically are interested in the methodology, like how do we develop a neural network? How do we layer things together? The different types of analysis with respect to the data. So this is, for example, different data that's being analyzed in terms of the training set with respect to the neural network. Various other, tabular information. This is the success rates based on this particular modeling versus previous modeling. The objective here, of course, is to produce models that do better than what we would do, um, uh, I guess, by ourselves, right? So you could imagine that we develop information, relationship techniques, but we could probably do better if we have a machine be able to like converge to the ability to do that in a better way, right? In general, right, in science, we expect, lots of information on how this stuff is done. Here we have, a collection of references. I was reading over some of these when I was preparing for this particular discussion. I noticed they put Google's paper here. They didn't even reference Google. That was a little surprising to me. So I remember when the attention mechanism came out from Google. That was approximately 2018, although there was a slightly earlier print. And basically, the point was that attention mechanisms outperform recurrent neural networks, but that's beside the point. Okay, so we can go back over here real quick, and I'll probably pop back over in a second. So this is the kind of understanding I have from a scientific point of view, is I'm really thinking in terms of the cohesiveness and the relationship in how study is done within the scientific community and such. Unfortunately, on the other side, I have a lot that's left to be concerned about, I guess. So when I'm thinking about creationism, I'm typically thinking of various claims that are typically ill-defined and they don't lend themselves to the scientific inquiry. So various things like the age of the Earth being incredibly young, various other things like that the earth was created in some perfect state or that animals were created in some perfect state, and it's very ill-defined exactly what this means. Various other things along the lines of like, there's changes in animals that are readily observed, but in general, there appears to be, or the suggestion is that there's some type of barriers that prevent other type of change from occurring, even though we don't really have a model that, discusses that or goes over that, right? So in general, I find, or at least when I was attempting to look at creationism, I don't really see any models that are presented, no differential equations, no linear algebra, nothing along these lines. Typically, there's a lack of proposals and study, various things like that. And so in general, this kind of leads me down the road of like curiosity, especially I'm hoping Kent will be able to enlighten me on some of these things. Um, and so, yeah, so I guess if I was to try to pinpoint maybe a point of discussion, I kind of like to talk about, one topic at a time, not really a big, you know, um, 50 topics type person per se. So One particular topic that's of interest to me, probably because I've taught it, is something about carbon-14 and what it is that we know about carbon-14 and the specific information related to carbon-14. And so, maybe we could work our way through this and discuss this a little bit. In particular, we have the physics, the modeling, of carbon-14 itself. I could probably talk about that a little bit in the presentation here. How many minutes do I have left?
Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
I had to unmute. You have about a minute, but how many more do you think you
Oh,
need?
a minute. Maybe a few minutes, if that's okay. So here I'm just going through a couple of different references with respect to carbon-14 dating. So this is a paper that I was taking a look at that was a collaboration between a university in China, the School of Physics,
I'll give you
and San Diego.
2.5 more minutes, and I'm gonna allow Kent to have the same amount of time.
Sure,
All right.
absolutely, yeah. So here we're discussing carbon-14 beta decay, and in particular, we're trying to model it specifically from a physics perspective. So, in general, atoms typically have a nucleus. The nucleus is typically modeled with shells, right? And then more advanced modeling is typically going to try to couple those shells together through some type of quantum Fourier, or not quantum Fourier transform, quantum field theory, right? So we're going to talk about the uncertainty of these shells and the relationship that they have on each other. And so that particular analysis is done in the way that I'm suggesting, right? Lots of data is used. Here we're talking about isotope or isospin, right, with respect to different atoms and their relationship. In general, right, this is how we imagine research goes, is you have a collaboration of dozens and dozens of PhD scientists from different universities around the globe. And in general, we come up with a cohesive understanding of how beta decay works and why it works the way it does. So like we have a very good understanding of like how long a neutrino by itself will take to decay. We have specific equations that do that. But this particular paper is specifically interested in carbon-14 and figuring out the exact physics that allow us to perfectly calculate out that it takes approximately, 5,730 years for its half-life, right? A few other papers that we'll probably get into as I chat here with Kent. We can talk about dendrochronology. This is the study of tree rings, right? It's a very robust field. There's probably 100 PhD scientists that specifically have a specialization in this exact field.
30 seconds.
They study, oh my. So they study all kinds of things with respect to carbon dating. So I'll go ahead and end it there, and I can present more of these papers when I'm talking with Kent, hopefully as cordially as we can. Thank you so much.
All right, I stopped your screen share there. And Kent, whenever you're ready, I will do the same. You got 12.5 minutes. You don't have to use the whole amount. We can get right into the open debate whenever you're finished.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the show here and doing this. I got several objections. First of all, it's not evolution versus creationism. It's evolutionism versus creation. You put the ism on evolution, like communism, Nazism, socialism. That's the ism, okay, not the creation. I take the stand that the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. God made everything in 6 days about 6,000 years ago. And there are thousands of indicators that say this earth simply cannot be billions of years old. If I told you, for example, that this Bic pen was, here, my Bic pen, this pen is 50,000 years old. You could say, wait, it's a ballpoint, and ballpoints were invented in 1888. So it has to be made after 1888. One fact destroys my claim of 50,000 years. Then you say it's made of plastic, and plastics weren't made till 1907. The second claim that proves my second fact that proves my claim is wrong, 5,000. Then you could say it's made by Bic Corporation. Bic wasn't a company till 1946. With three simple facts, you destroy the idea that the pen is 5,000 years or 10,000 or 10 billion years old, whatever. People like my opponent here are claiming the Earth is billions of years old, and it's kind of like we're not allowed to question that. I think common sense science would show the sun is burning up about 5 million tons of fuel every second. That would mean it has a limited lifespan. The sun is burning up and shrinking a little bit, about 5 feet per hour, but that's what the observed rate is, which means if you want to extrapolate back in time, you're going to have a problem if you go back billions of years. The moon is going around the Earth, but everybody knows the moon is getting farther from the Earth about 1.5 inches a year. It's called the lunar recession problem. You can Google that. Is the moon getting farther from the Earth? Yes, 1.48 inches per year, about 1.5 inches a year. So if you run the math backwards on that, bring the moon in closer, you get higher tides, and you have the inverse square law to deal with. If you brought the moon into 1/3 the distance, you take that 1/3 fraction, flip it over, and square it. It's 9 times the gravitational pull. People that have run all the math on this say, look, the moon-Earth system is 1.2 billion years max. You go back 1.2 billion, the orbit collapses like two magnets getting closer together. I go through on my video number 1 a whole bunch, about 30 different ways scientifically to prove the Earth is not billions of years old. Now, if you need billions of years for your theory, I'm sorry, you need to get a new theory. Anyway, so it would be creationism. It would be wrong. It would be evolutionism. Let's see. You say DNA is evidence for a relationship. If there are similar DNA codes in different animals and plants, that would only prove a common designer. Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint have millions of lines of identical code. They both go to the same spell check. Okay, what's that prove? The same guys wrote the code. Not that they both evolved from Morse code, but the believers in evolution, and it's a religion you must believe in, okay, not scientific. The believers in evolution are frantically looking for anything to support their theory that you know there is no God and we're related to a potato. You can believe that if you want, but the information contained in DNA is mind-boggling. One person, one human being's DNA, if you extracted it, unwound it, tied it end to end, would go across the solar system twice. That's the genetic code in you to make you. And if you think that happened by chance, you're welcome to believe that, but don't call that science. The mathematical odds of that happening are 0. It couldn't happen. So science is what we want to talk about here, I believe. Let's see. There we go. I love science. I taught high school science for 15 years. Science is the knowledge gained using observations and experiments. Nobody has ever observed an animal change to a different kind of animal. These charts that they make for our public school students, with everything being related right here, this is nothing but a propaganda poster. They have the humans related to the ducks. Why do you know? Because they got a line drawn between them. It's artwork. This is only artwork. Nobody's ever seen a human produce a non-human. Now, you can imagine that it happened over billions of years, but that's not science. I think evolution is pollution to our science department, and it should be taken out. We should teach science in science class. Science is what we know. We know cows produce cows. We know that happens. We see it happen. We know dogs produce dogs. We do not know that cows and dogs are related. You can believe that if you want. Science means knowledge. Scientia, the Latin word science, knowledge. Knowledge gained by experimentation. Show me any experiment that has demonstrated an animal can change to a different kind of animal. All we've seen are variations within what anybody would consider the same kind. For example, there are now over 330 recognized breeds of dogs. Probably had a common ancestor called a dog. And it could be the dog, the wolf, and the coyote had a common ancestor. They're all interfertile. They can interbreed. They normally don't, but they can. Dogs and pine trees cannot. Dogs and elephants cannot. Dogs and squirrels cannot. Dogs and coyotes can. I think any 3-year-old would tell you that's the same kind of animal. About 20 times in the first 7 chapters of the Bible, God said they will bring forth after their kind. That's all anybody has observed. That would be science. To imagine that dogs are related to potatoes is not science. It's imagination, okay? Science. Religions also attempt to understand and explain the world, but religion is not considered science. I agree. And evolution is a religion. It's not science. You have to imagine that it happened. Science versus religion. We go all day just on this one. Darwin's evolution church. Okay. Science is knowledge gained through observation, study, practice. Nobody's ever observed any of the claims of evolution. And I don't know how people who believe in evolution cannot see the obvious flaws in what they're thinking. For instance, I taught earth science for 15 years. The kids are being taught that the layers of the earth are different ages. They say the top layer is younger. I say, guys, I got a very simple question. If that dirt is younger than that dirt, where did that dirt come from? Did it come from outer space? How can it be a different age? Every speck of dirt in the universe is the same age, whether 6,000 or 6 trillion. It's the same age. There is no geologic column. It doesn't exist anywhere. All over the world, thousands and thousands of petrified trees have been found standing up, connecting all the layers, called polystrata fossil. Petrified trees in the vertical position are a pretty clear indicator all the layers had to form rapidly. The biblical model would be the moon is above the earth, and the earth is spinning under the moon, and that pulls the tides up and down. The tide going up, down, means it's also going in, out, called tidal pumping. So the sideways movement of trillions of tons of water with every tidal change, that's what made all the layers. That's why you have petrified trees standing up. Polystrata fossils. They're all over the world. So I think those who want us to believe that the layers are different ages, the burden of proof's on them. You better get an answer to this. How can you explain petrified trees that are standing up running through all the layers? The carbon dating, any of the dating methods, how many are there, Joseph? 26 different radiometric dating methods? About 26. Carbon 14, carbon 13.
Yes. Yes, you are on with a human. No. Yes, I do have a very nice phone voice. You are on with a human, though.
See, you know, the decay rate has never changed. We see obvious problems with carbon dating because the amount of carbon-14 in the atmosphere is still not in equilibrium. When they first invented carbon dating, at Willard Liberty University of Chicago in 1959, 49, anyway, he said, well, radiation from the sun produces carbon-14, and then it's decaying every 5,730 years, like Bobby said, okay? Half of it would decay. He said, well, that means at some point, if we took a brand new planet Earth, put it out going around the sun, it would start gathering carbon-14 in the atmosphere. That's correct. How long would it take it, since it's gathering and decaying at the same rate, similar to your checkbook? You know, you put it in, take it out. How long would it take it to reach equilibrium? And they said back in the 50s, late or early 60s, the atmosphere would take about 30,000 years to reach equilibrium. Let me get that one up here. So then they said, well, we know the Earth is billions of years old. Mistake number one. You do not know that, okay? So they said, we can forget the equilibrium problem. I'll show you here. Here's the problem. Radiometric dating was invented. Equilibrium problem right here. I reference everything that I can on my slides here. Okay. The decay rate, I'm very familiar with this. Okay, I know the calibration curve, but the obvious assumptions it's based on. Let's see. World's best laboratory. Here's some assumptions. If I told you to fill a barrel with water, but I've drilled holes on the other side, as you fill it, it starts leaking. You get higher, it leaks even more. You reach a point called equilibrium. You can't fill the barrel past that point unless you increase the input or decrease the outgo. What assumptions does carbon dating rely on? Well, it relies on the assumption that the atmosphere is in equilibrium, and it's not. I'll show you here. Closer look at its many flaws. Carbon dating. They said we know the Earth is. They said it would take 30,000 years to reach equilibrium. Then they said we know the Earth is millions of years old. We can ignore this problem. No, you can't. The atmosphere has still not reached equilibrium. Radiocarbon is forming 28 to 37% faster than it's decaying. They've known this for a long time. So if the atmosphere is still not in equilibrium, you can't carbon date anything. You're assuming it started with today's percentage. Fluctuations in the rate of C14 production, at times the production rate will exceed the decay rate. So you simply can't know that. I use the illustration. I know I'm out of time here. If I told you, you walked into a room, found a candle burning on the table. I asked you, when was it lit? I don't know. Well, let's measure. Let's do empirical science. Let's measure it. We measure the candle, find out it's 6 inches tall.
Got about a minute 45 left.
Then we measure how fast it burns. We can do this very scientifically. Let's say it's burning an inch an hour. We got two scientific facts. It is 7 inches tall. It's burning an inch an hour. Nobody argues. When was it lit? You can't tell me unless you can assume how tall it was. We don't know. Was it 40 feet tall, 10 inches tall? You don't know. And that it's always burned at the same rate. When you find a fossil in the dirt, all you really know is it died. You cannot prove it had any children, that's for sure. And you don't know that the rate of decay has been determined. And you're assuming when it lived to calculate how much C14 was in it when it lived. It's a chicken and an egg problem. So I think the Bible method would say God made everything in 6 days, which is the only way trillions of symbiotic relationships work. Certain animals require certain plants and vice versa, had to be created at the same time or within a few days of each other. The plants require certain animals to pollinate them, or insects, and certain insects and animals require certain plants to live. There's a lot of symbiotic relationship problems that the evolution religion has not solved. They avoid it like the plague. Anyway, did not get to. I'll try to get all the questions. If I have to go back over this debate later on my show, I do a show on drdino.com, DRDINO. You can see around all kinds of channels if you want to, or come visit us in Lenox, Alabama. And I'll pick up anything I miss out. Bobby, I'm not trying to miss anything, but I think you're wrong about carbon dating. I think you're wrong about the age of the Earth, and evolution is the ism, not it's the religion. And you're welcome to it.
All right. We'll call that the end of your opening statement there, and we'll get into the open discussion. Guys, just a quick reminder, there's a couple hundred of you in the chat at least. Go ahead, like the video, help us out with the algorithm. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber yet and you're coming over from a different channel. And just know that if you become a member within the next week or so, you'll be able to watch all the live streams from DebateCon that we do have Uncensored America come and film and live stream to our channel each debate, and that will all be under your membership. I think any membership, whether it's the debater or Final Word membership tier, will allow you to watch those. Yeah, check it out. We'll have a lot of good debates going on. So that being said, we're going to get into the open debate. Got 60 minutes on the clock. And go ahead, take it away, gentlemen.
Yep. All right. Do you want to go first, or can I ask you questions?
Go ahead, ask questions.
Sure. So I have a number of papers to go through. I don't know if they're of interest or whatnot, but I guess my first question might be on the modeling of carbon-14 itself, right? So we model these particular nuclei and we calculate out exactly what they'll decay into and how long their decay will be. Do you disagree with the physics, like the theoretical physics, as well as the laboratory verified physics?
Well, I taught physical science 15 years. I'm very familiar with this. Yes, I think carbon-14 decays. There are no examples that I know of any of these elements increasing. All of them are decay rates, which ought to indicate second law of thermodynamics. Everything's falling apart, like the Bible says, or like physics says it would. So we don't have any examples. You have to start with something higher, like potassium and decay to argon, or to start with uranium and decay to lead. Where's the examples of these elements forming? They say the Big Bang produced hydrogen and helium and lithium. How do you get uranium from hydrogen? So I think there's a serious chicken and egg problem there. You want to start with the element and watch it decay. I think the decay rate has been measured very precisely, but they're missing the point completely. How much was in it when it started? You can't know that.
Well, we can talk about that as well, right? But you agree then, as a point of mutual agreement, that the modeling that we have for carbon-14 has a half-life of 5,730 years or so, right? And that in general,
Normally. Yeah,
we
normally.
can calculate that in a few different ways. In particular, we have theoretical models where we literally do models with respect to particle physics, and we're basically modeling, quantum fields, right? And we're looking at the relationship, the coupling relationship between the different shells within a nucleus. And then we're able to calculate out the expected decay, what it will decay into, right? Like, for example, we're aware that carbon-14 decays and it introduces an antineutrino, basically a trivial amount of energy from this particular part of the decay mechanism. But we can still calculate that it's there, and then we can verify that that is in fact the case, right? We can see this stuff in the laboratory. So I'm just wondering, like, you agree with this part, right? That carbon-14 does decay at a,
I
you
agree.
know, a constant rate. Okay.
I don't know that
Um,
I agree. I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know that you
at a
can prove that.
constant rate?
I don't think we can prove the decay rate remains constant. Does the solar sunspot cycle affect it? We know it's neutrinos from the sun causing the formation of carbon-14. Could the
Mm-hmm.
neutrinos from the sun and other things coming off the sun alter the decay rate? I think it's been demonstrated that it's not. We can't prove it's a constant decay rate. But you can
With
believe that
respect to the upper atmosphere, or
anywhere.
so, like, you agree that, like, since 1950, right, we've observed, what is it? I had it written down here. 0.0120968% decay rate, right? Like, that's the percentage that decays every year. Like, if we put it in a bottle, put it in a laboratory, that appears to be the case, right?
I haven't seen that paper, but okay. Let's assume that's true. We know it's
Oh,
decaying.
it's not a paper. It's just I'm just writing it as a percentage, the coefficient
Okay.
that goes in the exponential decay, right? Yeah. Well, so
So
I guess my point is that we call it a constant decay because the percentage in the exponent is a constant, and we haven't observed any years in which it's different. More importantly, we assume that the physics of how we formulate atoms themselves is static, right? Otherwise, you'd be introducing isotopes and other atoms to be in existence. You would entirely change how chemistry works as you go into the past, right? So, like, there would appear to be a lot of missing modeling and a lot of missing physics if we were to think that there was something like different decay when you went into the past, because you'd be introducing all kinds of different, stabilized elements or unstable elements, and you'd be introducing all kinds of different isotopes that didn't exist before, right? So, like, the idea of the decay rate not being constant, I think, would lead to a lot of problems, like physically, right? I don't think that we'd be able to. Um, I don't think we'd be able to come up with a model that, coherently fits with our observations. I don't know if you agree with this or not, right?
I don't think so. I think it's not provable that the decay rate has remained constant over time. It's only been observed for 50 years, and you
Well,
want to
what?
use that number to prove something's 50,000 years old. I think that in a court of law they'd throw that out right
Mhm.
away.
Well, I guess my question is, what do you think is missing in, like, the standard model of physics? Like,
I
what
don't
do they
know.
have wrong? Like,
I don't know that they do, but I know that if the solar sunspot cycle alters the amount of radiation produced by the sun, we know the solar
mhm.
sunspot cycle every 11 years does crazy things to our atmosphere, northern
Yeah,
lights
but
and
it
things like.
that wouldn't change the atoms. Like, so, okay, I hear what you're saying. You're saying that there could be an increase in the amount of carbon-14 in the atmosphere produced by the sun, or a decrease, right? So the atmosphere could change over time. I don't disagree with that, right? But my question is more so on the atomic level. Do you disagree with the fact that the nucleus of a C14 atom is well understood? We know exactly what it will decay into. We know the amount of energy that the beta particle will produce. We've seen this time and time again, exactly as we expect in the laboratory. And the particle physics that we have about, isotrope spins, and exactly the way that protons and neutrons behave with each other, the strong and weak nuclear force. All of this cohesively provides a framework and a model that exactly aligns with the decay rate of carbon-14, right? Like,
Well,
we know it's 5,730 because, right, we have a model for particle physics that corresponds to everything else we understand about atoms and atomic theory, right?
okay, before we get too many things on the table, would you
Hmm.
agree the decay rate, 5,730 years, half of it is
Hmm.
likely to decay in that time, in 5,730 years? So
Yes,
it's a random process. If you've got 5,000 carbon-14
sure.
atoms,
Yeah,
half of them are going to decay. The odds are half
yeah.
of them will decay in 50 seconds. Well, then it wouldn't be would it be possible that all of them would decay in the first 5 seconds? I mean, that could, what's to stop that from happening? If it's a random process, if it's flipping
Um,
coins,
well,
it could.
there, there is a probability dedicated to them all
Right.
decaying in the first 5 seconds, but there's also a probability dedicated that a single atom, as it moves from one space to another, hasn't, taken, a path to the sun and back when it does that particular motion, right? So just because theoretically that's possible, that doesn't mean we'll ever witness that, right? It would require 10 to the billion universes that last 10 to the billion years by the time something that absurd would be probabilistically possible, right? So we don't take that as a actual possibility. You can
Right.
say in general, right, with any statistics, there's a possibility of something impossible happening, but it's like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm wanting people to understand this is all
Mhm.
based on the observed rate that half of these atoms will, just half of them, decay at
Mhm.
a certain time. But since
Yes.
it's random, it's theoretically possible that all of them could decay, or none of them could decay, or
But
the decay rate. It is not. You're not able to prove that decay rate has remained constant all through history. You can't prove such a thing.
yeah, but uh, that probability is incredibly teeny tiny. It's effectively zero, right?
Well, you're saying that, but in a court of law, they'd say all that you can't. You're saying if
But
half of
we
the
could
people in the
calculate it
neighborhood,
out,
okay,
right? We could calculate it out though.
let's say half the people in a given neighborhood are going to commit crimes this year. Okay,
Uh-huh.
therefore, we can draw statistics on that and calculate things over a great period of time. You're saying
Yeah,
half of these
but
atoms are likely to decay.
yeah, but if you had if you had a statistic of crime rate, right, at, half people will commit a crime at such and such time, and you had an incredibly tight standard deviation around that particular model that right, because you know the standard deviation because you calculated it out, and you had billions and billions of humans, then it would be an absurd claim to say something like, well, maybe zero commit crime, right, within that time frame, and that would be the same thing. That would be an absurd claim.
Well,
So
not necessarily.
it no, it's just like the fact that, like, when we do statistics, right, we take humans, we sample the average height, and we sample the standard deviation. This is a parametric model, right, where we have a normal distribution, right? The normal distribution doesn't inhibit any value from being possible, right? So, for example, is there a calculatable probability that a human will be, 1,000 feet tall? There is, right? But it's an absurdly tiny probability. And so we don't consider that like part of reality. We only allow ourselves to go out to so many sigmas before we say, no, those are clearly absurd. They will never happen, right?
Okay.
In particular, I just want to point out, if you do introduce a minimum discrete value, such as a Planck length or Planck time, then those absurdities disappear immediately because they wouldn't be possible. They would be literally non-possible, right? So we can talk about hypothetical impossibilities all we want based on us doing continuous modeling of particular things like carbon-14 decay. But the moment we introduce even a hair amount of quantum mechanics, those literally disappear as absolutely absurd. They could never happen, right? Um, so the point is that we have a great model of C14 in physics papers. We have the theoretical portion of it, and we have the laboratory portion of it. The laboratory portion of it has been able to measure what it is that we predict is going to happen. We've seen it for decades, right? And then we have the theoretical portion where we literally have like particle physics able to map out exactly how C14 is going to work. I agree with you. We don't know how much C14 is in the atmosphere at any particular point in the past, right? I'd like to move on to that if you'd like. But the point
Well,
is that we're
hang
we're
on. We
fairly
got
sound on C14's decay rate, right? Sorry.
no, you are. We have 4 different topics on the table here. I'd like to go one at a time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Nobody plans for this moment. It starts as something that's supposed to help, until it's the only thing you need. 1 in 30 Americans live with opioid addiction. Most never plan to, but this moment, you can take back control. With QuickMD, you can connect with a doctor online as soon as today. Visits are affordable, and there's no insurance required. Get started and book a visit today at quick.md.
Time you've either eaten plants or you've eaten animals that have eaten plants, like for every single meal. So probably every human being alive today has carbon-14 in them. And it's assumed that the C14 percentage in our bodies is the same as though is in all living animals and the same that is in the air. So if the air is 0.0000765%, we probably have the same. Okay, and I think that's a reasonable assumption, but I would point out, Your Honor, that is just an assumption. We can't prove that.
Well, we test that in the laboratory too. FYI, we test that.
And you know that every human being on the planet has the same amount of C14 that's living right now. Do you know that?
Well, I also don't know the height of every human on the planet either, right? But yes, in general, statistically, we are aware that every living thing on the planet right now has approximately the same ratio of C14 to C12 as the atmosphere, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's provable, but as far as the height of people, I think you can find different tribes around the world. The Pygmy tribe is very different than the Hootsie tribe, or whatever they're called, the 7-footers.
But we do it though, right? We do it with leaves in the laboratory. We also do it. You can do it with fingernails from humans, right? Like like we do this because anything that we produce as humans that's biological, right, is very recent in terms of 5,730. So like we're debating over like, like theoretically we replace all of our cells every few years, right? Meaning that we get a new batch of carbon, but that would technically be irrelevant because we live less than 100 years anyway. So this is just an incredibly teeny tiny percentage that's not really relevant. The point is anything living in this particular carbon environment is going to have approximately the same ratio of carbon-14, right? Or carbon-14 to carbon-12.
Right. You've taken up most of the time here. Let me just explain. With the short 5,700-year half-life, no carbon-14 atom should exist in any carbon older than 250,000 years, like coal samples. Yet it has proven impossible to find any natural source of carbon below the Ice Age strata that does not contain significant amounts of C14, even though such strata are supposed to be millions or billions of years old. Conventional carbon-14 laboratories have been aware of this anomaly since the 80s, have strived to eliminate it, and are unable to account for it. The world's best laboratory, which learned during 2 decades of low C14 measurements how to not contaminate specimens externally, under contact to creationists, confirmed the observations for coal samples, and even for a dozen diamonds, which cannot be contaminated. These constitute very strong evidence that the Earth is only thousands of years old, not billions. So they're assuming they know how much was in it when it started. They're assuming the decay rates remain constant. We know the atmosphere is still not, if we're still not in equilibrium, today it's 0.0000765%, and it's gaining. We still haven't reached equilibrium. You can't carbon date anything.
I'm not aware of that particular study with coal. I'd be happy to look into that.
There it is right there.
Great.
Carbon-14 is forming faster than it's decaying.
Excellent. And I'm sure that there is wonderful explanations that people do over coal, right? They study it, and I'm sure that they're aware of this particular problem. I'm sure it isn't like new to people that study carbon-14, right? What is it? It's just like we never find carbon-14 in oil, right? In fact, isn't this one of the ways that we determine whether or not oil is synthetic or natural? Is we literally do a test to figure out whether or not there's carbon-14 in it. So if it's synthetic, meaning it was made with recent plant life, then we're aware that it has carbon-14, and so we detect that, right? But any old oil that we dig up out of the ground has 0 carbon-14 in it, right? Meaning that all the oil that we find in...
Yeah, I don't know that that's true. This is the first time I've heard anybody say that. I'll check it out. But here we go back to the coal, though. Studies reported University of Pennsylvania State University, was given 10 coal samples in 2003. I got the second box there. Despite samples being allegedly millions of years old, they found measurable amounts of C14 in all 10 samples. How can there be...
Hang on. If you're unwilling to discuss the oil aspect.
I don't
Then
know about
why?
the oil. First time I've heard of it. You
Me,
mentioned
me
coal.
too. And I already stated I don't know about the coal. So
Okay,
this
let
is
me
something we
give you
both
some more
have to go
things.
look into later, right?
Okay, and I said I don't know about the oil. I'll look into that later. So back to the coal.
Correct.
When they test
Well,
coal samples, they still have carbon-14 in them. How can they?
okay, okay.
How can coal samples still have carbon-14?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I
have
need
an
to go
idea.
read
I
about
have
it.
an idea. They're not billions of years old. Coal formed
Well,
during
how
Noah's
about
flood,
oil
4,500.
then? Why does oil have 0 carbon-14 in it?
I think oil formed during Noah's flood also. And oil,
With
they make,
zero carbon-14?
I don't know that it does. I've never heard that. I will check that out. But I think there's lots of other ways to show the Earth is not billions of years old, and you don't need billions of years. Oil was formed during Noah's flood when all the
Maybe
animals got
oil is
squished.
incredibly old.
Or maybe it's incredibly recent and the carbon-14 is not in oil. Maybe oil, they make factories right now that make oil out of things in 20 minutes.
Does oil contain carbon? Why does it contain carbon?
Oh yeah, it's part of the formula for oil. I said have never heard that. I'll do some research and thank you. But I know that in coal they're still finding carbon-14 in all the samples.
Just want to cut in for a
billions of
second.
years old.
Let you guys know we're 20 minutes into the our debate here, or the open dialogue. Just want to ask the chat, please like the video. You guys can do better than where we are at. And also, if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe. We're going to be putting another evolution creation debate tomorrow. It's going to be evolution on trial. So if you like this one, subscribe. There's going to be another one tomorrow. Kent, you should tune into that one. Would be interesting. And I'll let you guys get back into it. We got 40 minutes left.
Well, carbon-14 is found in the soft tissue of dinosaur bones. To a creationist, this makes perfect sense. The whole world is 6,000 years old. Dinosaurs always lived with man. They're just giant lizards. Lizards never stop growing. And before the flood came, people lived to be 900. Read Genesis 5. So dinosaurs are the ones that drowned in the flood are 4,500 years old. And yeah, we should still find carbon-14 in them. And we do. But if they're 70 million years old, there should be none. So you guys got a problem, not me.
So attempting to try to understand the coal as quickly as I can, because I don't know much about coal. Apparently coal is made a lot faster than oil, at least from what I'm reading here. And in particular, it has bacteria and fungi that grow in it. And because there's fungi and bacteria that grow in it, those have carbon-14 in them. And hence it's quite common for coal to have carbon-14 contamination, whereas oil typically doesn't have that, right? So like the point is that there seems to be a reasonable explanation about why there'd be carbon-14 in coal, right? Not that the coal itself literally has carbon-14, right? Unless it was made recently enough, but that there is microbes and bacteria that grow within and around coal, right? Coal isn't found underground in reservoirs, right?
Well, hang on. For the record, Your Honor, he's admitting that carbon-14 samples can be contaminated. So therefore, you better be careful about it. Okay. So I said you cannot prove how much was in it when it started. You don't know because the atmosphere is still not at equilibrium. So you don't know how much was in it when it was formed. And you don't know it's never been contaminated. So
yeah,
I win.
I already granted you that we need to have a discussion on the atmosphere. I just wanted your agreement on that we know that carbon-14 decays at a particular rate, that we understand the physics very well, right?
We don't know the decay rate's always been the same. It's a random thing. If I said flipping coins is going to give you so many heads every out of 10,000 coins, I think there'd be a statistical probability that's happened, but it's theoretically possible to not match that. And the decay rate, random thing. It's a random event.
But if you flipped a coin 10 billion times and it all came up heads, clearly it's a weighted coin, right? Clearly there was cheating, right? Like the point is that there are we went over this earlier. There are probabilities that are astronomical, and astronomical things are not in consideration. And again, I already granted that if you introduce a discrete limit in your calculations, those absurdities are not even possible to calculate. They come out to zero. Like literally zero, not hypothetically zero where they have 10,000 zeros before you finally get a number, but I mean literally zero because you've introduced a discrete constant that you can't calculate below, right? So introducing something like a Planck length immediately makes those type of absurdities be literally zero, right? Not just, theoretically zero, right?
Okay, so let's say you're going to carbon date a log from a log cabin. You find
Yep.
an ancient structure from who knows when, probably several thousand years ago. You want to carbon date the wood to see, which could be carbon dated, to see how much was in it. Well, if
Yep.
it's several thousand years old, and the decay and the atmospheric carbon-14 is still increasing, and we know it is, C14 is still increasing. But you're going to use today's percentage of carbon-14 to date that log. You'd have to know how old it is to figure out how old it is.
Yes. Well, so what you're
Yes,
saying
bingo.
is, that the atmosphere, right, the atmospheric ratio plays a role, that you would, in theory, need to know exactly what the atmosphere's ratio was in order to properly date the log with respect to carbon-14. And I agree with you, right? I'm just wondering whether or not you think that that methodology is incorrect. That is, if I know 1,000 years ago the ratio of carbon-14 to carbon-12, and if there was a tree that was alive that was consuming that material, then when that tree dies, right, it locks in place internally within its cellular structure that carbon ratio. And hence, when we, drill out a sample of it, right, we expect that we would be able to date how old that log is if we knew what the ratio was of the atmosphere in the past, right? Like, you
That's what I
agree with
just
that
got done saying.
methodology, right?
Well, that's what I just got done saying. You'd have to know how old it is to figure out how old it is. And also, you're still assuming
Sure.
there's been no contamination. We know the solar sunspot cycle affects decay rate of things. So that you
No,
don't
no,
know the
no.
decay. You don't know.
So it doesn't
57.
change the.
It
All right, all
does.
right.
Carbon-14 is 5730. Potassium to argon decays at a vastly different number. Huge number.
Sure.
Why
Yeah.
are the decay rates different? Why isn't everything 5730? The decay rate of everything.
Well, because that's related to the shell stability of nuclei, right? So,
Well, it's
like,
different
if
for different
we,
atoms, right?
yes, it's going to be different for
Right.
different atoms, right?
Good.
So we
Okay.
even know the exact amount of energy that the beta particle receives when it decays, right? And it turns from carbon into nitrogen, right?
I
Um,
don't know that. I'll check on that. Okay.
what do you mean? Well,
I,
of course, it would have to be the same because there's conservation of energy, right?
well, you
So,
said we know this is going to be the same, and I don't think it's possible to know such a thing. But okay, I understand what you said. I will check that out. So you want to
what do
go on
you?
to oil? I don't know that oil cannot be
Well, no.
contaminated in a situation. I know that the oil pressure in the ground indicates it's not been there for millions of years. It would have cracked the rock. I lived in East Texas for 5 years. They do frack jobs all the time, and
Sure.
a lot of my students.
It's nice out there.
I taught earth science 15. Yeah. So I think that the oil is good proof of a young Earth. The fact that it's still under pressure. They drill down, hit a geyser. Beverly Hillbillies. Shooting in the ground, hit the crude, and became billionaire. So I think the fact that there's oil still under pressure is a good indication this Earth it hasn't been there for millions of years. That's for sure. The pressure would have dissipated. If you see a tire on an old tractor and the tire's still aired up, and you say that thing's been sitting there for 300 years, I'm going to doubt that. I don't think it could hold that pressure for that long. I don't think the Earth could hold the oil pressure up to 20,000 psi for millions of years. So I think oil formed during the flood. I think coal formed during the flood of Noah 4,500 years ago. That's my position.
Sure.
I'm not demanding that be taught to all students at taxpayer expense. The evolutionists are demanding all taxpayers pay for their religion to be taught. I resent that. I object to that. I'm going to try to stop that.
Sure. Yes. So, why don't we talk about, because you were talking about trees, right? The thing I wanted to point out was the slight issue that you're alluding to. One is that there's a difference between the decay rate of overall carbon-14. As you're noting, the sun is going to cause different atmospheric conditions and different amounts of carbon-14 to be created, and hence the amount of carbon-14 that is decaying will be different. But the actual atoms themselves don't decay at a different rate, right? They still decay at 5,730 because we calculate out what the average time of a nucleus is before it's going to spit out a beta particle, right? So, like, we're aware of the decay rate of the actual atom, C14, right? But we can certainly be concerned about the atmosphere and the amount of C14 that's in it, or the, amount of carbon-14 as a whole that will be decaying, right?
No, no, you keep saying right, as if I agree with you. I don't agree with any of this, okay? So for the record, you're saying right. I'm not saying anything. We
But I
don't know
showed
those
you a
things.
paper.
Okay, let's give you 2 atoms of carbon-14. One's
Uh-huh.
going to decay in 5,730 years. The other one's not going to decay for another 5,700. Why don't they both decay at the same time?
Well,
How do you,
that's too
it's
small of a
statistical.
sample set, right? So the statistical predictability of a sample size of 2, it has a standard error that's massive. It'd be basically
Right.
unknown, right? But when you give me a trillion atoms, the statistical the statistical error, the error rate, right? That becomes an incredibly teeny tiny small amount. Meaning that if you were to tell me, oh, well, actually this percentage decayed, look at that, I'd be like, well, that's a lie, because the probability of that is like 10 to the minus 50, right? So, like, the point is, you end up with a very tight interval on the amount of decay that's going to occur because you have a large sample size. If you make the standard error incredibly tiny, of course, we have no idea exactly when it's going to happen. That's not how we do statistics, though. We don't use a sample size of 2. We use a sample size of a trillion, right?
I think in a court of law, just throwing in any reasonable doubt, which gets the benefit of the doubt goes to the,
But it's not reasonable.
okay. Well, living mollusk shells, still alive, carbon dated 2,300 years old in 1963. Science magazine published the article. They're still
Okay.
living. They're living mollusks. How can they be 2,300 years old? They're still alive. It didn't work.
I don't know the particular study or the particular findings that were discovered. In
There it is, right on the screen for
particular,
you.
great. So in particular, right, a lot of these discoveries of anomalous behavior or anomalous concerns, they're typically found by the scientists that do this stuff. They're the ones that publish and say, hey, you have to be careful about carbon dating things that are in the sea, right, because of this particular condition or that particular condition, or things that go through these particular, chemical stuff, right? So like the point is that citing a single paper from 1963 doesn't really lend itself to saying that the carbon-14 atom doesn't decay at the rate that we observe it and have calculated it out using particle physics, right? So I'd like to talk about dendrochronology, if you'd
Okay,
like to take a look at that.
let's finish carbon dating first. You've said right.
Well,
This is a classier kind of crime. The court center. Never been hit before. State-of-the-art tech.
It's constant, and we know the amount is in it, and we have observations from testing that says it doesn't always work. So something's wrong. The scientific experimentation says, hey, it didn't work on this one. Let's see. It didn't work on, I can give you hundreds of examples.
I do not know the context of that particular paper, Kent.
There you go. Antarctic Journal, freshly killed seal, carbon dated 1,300 years old.
Great. So you referenced 2 sea creatures. Great. So let's talk about trees, right?
Okay.
So there's an entire field of basically botany or biology, right, dedicated to tree ring study. So there are dozens and dozens of PhD scientists with degrees in dendrochronology, where they take tree rings, right, and they not only test the amount of carbon-14 ratio that's in the tree rings, but they also date the trees based on aligning the different trees together. So like, I don't know if I can share my screen or whatnot.
Yeah.
Um,
Ready?
yeah.
Go for it.
So here's a example of a particular paper dedicated to dendrochronology and radiocarbon dating. This particular paper is talking about using tree rings in order to assess the carbon-14 percentage that's in the atmosphere in the past. So this allows us to get an incredibly tight understanding of exactly what the carbon-14 ratio was with respect to carbon-12. So this is a particular historical paper, and it was it's by Levitt, right? But there's other ones along these lines, right? So here is another paper dedicated to specifically studying trees and tree growth. So hopefully this seems obvious, but in general, we have a fairly strong understanding of trees and we know how photosynthesis works. So we also know how much carbon a tree can take in from year to year. We also have strict understanding of what that can maximize to be or what it will minimize to be. And we have really good models of how this stuff works. So this here is just an example of a particular study. This one is not about carbon-14, but it is a study of trees specifically and the amount of carbon that they're able to gain from year to year to year to year. So we have a bunch of trees that were looked at in Wisconsin. Here is, for example, the sampling that was done. They took everything, all kinds of stuff, like, for example, the percentages of leaves that were available. This is directly related to the amount of photosynthesis that is possible, which is directly related to the amount of carbon that can be produced in each ring, right? And this, for example, will, in general, allow us to model the growth that trees are able to do from year to year, right? Lots of trees were sampled, lots of different graphs. Here's an example of the relationship between tree width and the amount of carbon that the tree has, right? And so we see that there's particular barriers where trees can't, gain, just kilograms of carbon within like a single year. This is just not physically possible. Photosynthesis doesn't even allow it, right? And so the point is we have very good models of how trees are and how quickly they can grow and how quickly they work, right? Here's a third paper. This one was published in another country, so international paper. This is specifically for the INT-Cal20 calibration curve. This is the very well-known curve that is used to calibrate the atmosphere of carbon-14 to carbon-12, specifically using trees, but also uses various other material. In particular, this was using a lot of Roman period items, and they were assessing the differences in the INT-Cal update. So there's like INT-Cal 9, there's INT-Cal 13, INT-Cal 20, and each of these updates and becomes better and better over time. They're now starting to integrate these particular findings with respect to other layered objects. So for example, they take, what is that cave thing called?
We'll
Stalagmites?
give you
So
like
they
another 25, 30 seconds, and then we'll let Kent respond.
Oh, sure. So the point is that there's this is what the calibration of the atmosphere looks like. You can see it looks like this, and this tells you what the atmosphere looked like at those particular times, and we have it calibrated. This is, for example, how we're able to date that, like, the book of John was written in 70 AD or 80 AD, right? And I'm talking about the particular pieces that we find, not, it could have been written earlier, but the pieces that we find. Here's an example of the carefulness that is done. These are the individual samples that are taken to calibrate. This is the update from INT-Cal 13 to INT-Cal 20, and you can see the slight differences in the changes of how that gets updated. So here they're demonstrating literally not like thousands of years, but updates on the minuscule level of like 5 years. Like we've refined the atmospheric understanding to allow us to be 5 years more accurate. These are incredibly minute calculations involving tens of thousands of specimens, as well as millions of measurements that are done. And so the point is, like, these particular calculations go back 60,000 years, and they're completely independent of carbon-14. They allow us to calculate out the carbon-14 so that we understand the atmospheric conditions, right?
All right, let's give Kent
anyway.
a chance to respond. That was
Sure,
about
sure.
3 or 4 minutes uninterrupted, so Kent, I'd be willing to give you equal time if you want.
Sure, yes, I'd take way more than that to answer all this, but keep in mind, so far, this entire debate tonight has been Bobby trying to establish the Earth is billions of years old, because it's not about evolution at all yet, okay?
Well,
They
let's
need
just stick to 60.
It's my turn to talk, okay?
Sorry.
They need billions of years for their theory to look reasonable. For me to tell you that an amoeba can turn to a whale and put it on a chart and make the kids learn this in school and say this is science, this a protozoa or amoeba bacteria, this single cell creature came to life from by itself in the warm little pond, and it slowly turned into all these animals. To make that even sound reasonable, they have to have billions of years. Bobby knows full well, and so do I, if you could prove the Earth is not billions of years old, the entire evolution religion collapses. Now, put my slides up there, brother. Tree ring dating is not an exact science. They produce more than one ring a year. Occasionally, trees produce more. There's a federal paper right here. Okay, multiple ring growth. Let's see. The oldest tree in the world is 4,300 years old. This guy says 8,000. Rainfall, floods, glacial activity. There are so many things that can affect the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and hence the growth of the trees. If there's more animals, they produce CO2. They breathe in the oxygen the plants produce. They reciprocate the gases. The forest could be more dense at sometimes, and disease goes through. We had pine bark beetles come through Alabama here 2 years ago, killed probably 200 of our trees out of our 10,000, whatever we got. So I think there are so many things in an honest court of law, this would be thrown out as evidence if they're trying to find somebody guilty. But so far, all he's done tonight is try to rescue the idea that the Earth is billions of years old. That is not nothing. I thought the debate was about creation evolution, but he found to make it all about rescuing time. I know, even if the Earth is billions of years old, and it's not, even if it is, there is no evidence of any animal or plant ever changing to a different kind. Man is the one, we're the ones putting our classification system on the animals. They don't care how we classify them. They don't even know we're doing it. They know what to look for in a mate. Up on our North 40 here at Dinosaur Adventureland, we have donkeys, cows, sheep, armadillos, squirrels, raccoons, possums, all running around together. The raccoons don't even think about mating with the cows. They know what to look for, another raccoon. So there is no evidence of any animal ever changing to a different kind of animal. But I know they need the billions of years old desperately to make people say, well, maybe it could happen over a long period of time. That's the whole debate so far tonight, is trying to rescue time. Just I want people to understand that. Tree ring dating does not prove the Earth is billions of years old. Trees can have different ring patterns on opposite sides of the same hill, from the leeward side and the windward side. Many things can affect the carbon-14, the carbon production rate. A herd of animals going through produce more C14, volcanic activity. It's just not a simple exact science. You don't know how much was in it. The trees absorb it. If this global warming stuff that Al Gore and those idiots talk about, if they burn the forest, it produces more carbon dioxide, and that the trees grow faster. They absorb it all. So it's wonderful. Trees can have prevailing wind pattern, can cause problems. Diseases can go through a forest, like ours did. Took out a bunch of our pine trees. Overshadow, a big one overshadowing a little one. It's not as cut and paste as he tried to make it sound tonight. But even then, it's all futile. All you've done is try to rescue time. Where's the evidence for evolution? That's what the debate's supposed to be tonight. Where's the evidence of any animal changing to a different kind of animal? Where is it? I don't see it. I'll give him my time. Go ahead.
Can I go ahead and present a couple more papers real quick? Let's see. So, the thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was specifically on tree ring calibration, right? Dendrochronology is a well understood field. It's been around a long time. In particular, this was simply an example of how we calibrate the atmosphere based on ring tree dating. The specifics that Kent was talking about with respect to annual rings versus seasonal rings, right? These are things that like tree ring people are well aware of. We have dozens of people with PhDs in specifically tree ring data. So the idea that it can be simply dismissed as like, well, a tree can produce more than one ring in a year. Yeah, but we have models of photosynthesis and how much carbon a tree can take in. We have specific calibrated models of how this particular stuff is calculated. Something I wanted to show real quick on the screen. Let me switch over to this one real quick. This here is an example of tree ring growth, right? So we have here a differential equation that was developed in order to understand tree ring growth, right? This particular differential equation is with respect to time. It has a derivative, and in particular, the derivative equals this particular equation. This is an example of the type of study that is done when you're interested in trying to understand tree rings and how well they grow. The people that do tree rings, I'm not one of them, but they know what they're doing. They are aware of annual growth versus seasonal growth. They're aware of dating these things in different ways. They literally have journals dedicated to this stuff, and there's literally hundreds of people that do it. So here, let me switch back over real quick. So like, here's an example that I want to point out. There's literally a tree ring society that you can become a member of. So like, I'd be interested to know if Kent has attended any of the conferences that they hold every single year, right? So, for example, they have like a newsletter, right? We can look at, some of the news stuff that they do. Here, let me zoom in real quick to show you. So like here's, for example, the 5th African Dendrochronology Field School, right? So this is people studying specifically how tree rings work and what they can tell us about the age of the Earth, right? Here is, for example, how you take cores from trees so that you can do the sampling. Here is the 11th World Dendro Conference in Zambia. I'd encourage Kent to go here and meet all of these scientists, right? There's literally 100 PhDs that are all interested in this one idea of how to understand the growth of trees. And again, we have the growth of trees on we understand it on the cellular level, we understand it on the leaf level, we understand it on the ring level. We literally have models of exactly how large the rings can get. There's literally a relationship between the size of the tree, which will prevent it from growing, as large as it can be. And then also other factors, such as like a young tree wants to grow faster. A young tree is more likely to grow more seasonal rings than an older tree will, right? But the point is that this stuff is well known. Like, these are the people that are publishing the papers that Kent is referencing. When he references a paper that says, hey, look, there are seasonal rings inside of an annual ring. These are the people that are studying those things. They're publishing it. They have conferences. They're the ones that are publishing these databases, right?
That was about
Okay.
3
Sorry.
minutes there. We'll go ahead and turn it over to Kent.
Well, again,
Sure.
all of this is to try to rescue time. We haven't talked about evolution. Where is the evidence of any animal changing to a different kind of animal? These trees you're talking about, like the Methuselah tree in California, okay?
Mm-hmm.
4,300 years old, Earth's oldest organism. Now they're saying maybe 4,800 years old, okay? But nothing 10,000 or 20,000 or 50,000. But even then, where's the evidence of any animal changing to something other than have the trees changed to anything? The chart shows trees on here. Do you believe, Bobby, that trees are related to sharks? They've got
Yes.
trees and sharks with a line connecting them. Do you believe you are related to a pine tree?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We'll add you to my chart.
Okay.
All right, guys, we got about 12 minutes left. Let you know.
Do you agree that there are hundreds of scientists that work on tree ring dating?
Probably so. Probably a lucrative government job.
In Zambia?
well, maybe not as lucrative. It's probably still a government job. I think they're busy trying to get supper on the table over there. But
Well, they're international, right? So there's
okay,
literally,
right.
I think it had a representation from 35 countries, right, in
Well,
this particular conference.
that proves
So
something
the
to
point,
somebody somewhere.
yeah, it proves that there's an international forum whereby people study tree rings, right?
I
And
think
in particular,
hang on, there's an International Flat Earth Society too. Does that prove something to somebody?
they're not PhD scientists that
Oh,
are
okay.
producing peer-reviewed literature. There's a you agree,
Okay.
right? That there's a difference between peer-reviewed literature and being FYI, this particular group of dendrochronologists, they interact with other fields. They interact
Right.
with the chemists, they interact with the biologists and the botanists, and they interact with the physicists, right? So the physicists and the dendrochronologists, they're all interacting, and their theories are corresponding with other people.
Swelling, stiffness, instability, reduced range of motion. This is what it's like living with TGCT, a condition that
Tree rings, right, are studied independently of carbon-14, but they validate the fact that carbon-14 has an incredibly tight understanding going into the past, right?
But all of these tree rings that you're talking about are in the
Mhm.
last 5 or 6,000 years. 5 or
No, they
6,000.
we have living trees that are 10,000 years old. What are
I'd
they
like to see the. I don't. Well, I don't believe
what
you
was
for
it?
a second. Show me the reference on that
The
one.
yeah, the Briscone pine trees,
I've got it right
bristlecone
here.
pine trees.
Bristlecone.
Yeah.
There's one right there. We've got a piece in our museum here. Large piece of bristlecone pine. The tree
Excellent.
ring date. I got the oldest bristlecone pine they found is 4,300 years old.
No, there are some that are alive that have 10,000 years.
You're mistaken. Show me the proof of that.
I've read the papers.
Oh, that's proof. That proves that I surrender. You read the paper. Gee whiz, that's
Well,
proof.
thank
Okay.
you. I see. I I'm I'm interested in corresponding with dozens of PhD scientists that work on this stuff, right?
Okay.
So like I'm aware of the things that they've done, right? There's an interest in the truth. Like let me ask you, do you think that the scientists working on tree rings are not interested in reporting the accuracy of their findings? That you think they're all trying to lie?
I don't know. It depends who's funding them, I suppose. But here's the bristlecone pine article from Earth Matters. The oldest living tree is 4,800, not 10,000.
Mhm.
That's a bristlecone pine right there. It's in California. Okay. They keep hidden where it's at. The Great Basin bristlecone pine, 5,000 years old, not
Mhm.
10,000. But even then, you're trying so hard
I
to
don't-
rescue time. You missed the entire point of the debate tonight. Where's the evidence for
Not
evolution?
really.
Yeah, you did. Have these bristlecone pine. Do you believe the bristlecone pine trees came from
Mhm.
an amoeba? Do you believe the bristlecone
Yes.
pines came? You believe
Yes.
amoebas turned to pine trees? You
Yes,
believe that?
the cohesiveness of science
Uh-huh.
indicates that these fields, right, that we study in great detail have
Right.
relationships with each other. There's a reason that we have such strong evidence and confidence in something like biology, because we also have strong evidence and confidence in stuff like carbon dating. Carbon-14 is a very well-established theory. It's the same theory that gives you your understanding of Roman artifacts and how old they are, sections of the Bible and how old they are. Older texts, right? The Dead Sea Scrolls were dated with carbon dating. The point is that that same theory and that same analysis gives you all of these other things that are dated presumably fairly accurately, right? They have some ranges, but then I feel like you're like dismissing the entire field of study, and like you haven't even attended the tree ring society's conferences. Like
Wow.
I'm 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 concerned why you would be so dismissive of hundreds of PhD people that are working on this exact effort. They want to publish the truth, and your contention is, well, they don't know tree rings as well as I do. Like I'm confused. Like why?
I agree with that part. Okay. Now, the God of the universe who created everything said he did it all in 6 days. And when you add up the dates in his book, it comes to 6,000. You talk about peer reviewed. You don't get any higher than this. God wrote this. So do you disagree with God that you did it all in 6 days?
I disagree with the sentiment from the scripture.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the oldest tree I've been able to find is in the less than 5,000 years. So that Bible said there was a flood 4,500 years ago. Some trees could have survived right through a flood. Trees survive floods all the time. So there may be a 5,000-year-old tree in the world. But your statement tonight was you believe you are related to a pine tree, and you think the bristlecone pines came from an amoeba. Where is the evidence? Where's the evidence of an amoeba or protozoa, bacteria, a single-celled creature? I'll give you whatever one you want to start with. Where's the evidence of any bacteria ever producing anything other than a baby bacteria? Why do you believe bacteria
a
turn to whales?
protobacteria?
Oh, wait a minute. Why do you believe bacteria turn to whales in humans? And do you think this should be taught to all kids in public school at taxpayer expense?
Yes, because that's what the science indicates. There are tens of thousands of research papers every year in evolutionary biology. We have it.
All of them?
We,
I'll debate them
we
all
have,
one at a time.
Yeah, we have an incredibly cohesive understanding of how that works, right? And that's why I'm trying to focus on specifically carbon dating. I know you keep trying to change the topic, but like carbon dating is well understood. It's a very well understood science with hundreds of PhD people that have been doing this for decades. And it's where we get these data sets. Like I said, some of the newest stuff is they're taking stalagmites. And they're also doing ocean cores. They're drilling into the ocean to get the layers from that. They're also drilling into lakes to get the layers from those. And then in general, when you get these different layers, they're able to do carbon dating within the layers in order to continue or confirm the same, chronology that has already been well established. These things are so well established, we're at the level of correcting years on our Roman artifacts dating. We're like, oh, it's actually a little, 3 years earlier or 3 years later. Like these are incredibly precise findings. They're not like, it isn't. I don't know. I just like you see a picture with a bunch of scientists in it, and your first thought is who's paying them rather than the papers that they're producing that are peer reviewed by the physicists and the chemists and the botanists.
Slow down. Let's take that issue. Would you agree in North Korea, there are no published papers by all the PhD scientists in North Korea that criticize communism? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I've not been to the Zambia conference. Okay. You've not been to Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama to see all of our evidence of a young Earth and an amazing creator that created it all. Why don't you come visit? Come visit.
Well, I don't live in Alabama, but if I am in Alabama, I'll stop by.
Okay.
So I can make you that. I'll make you that promise, Ken.
Okay.
If I'm ever in Alabama, I'll stop by.
Now, if you'd like, if you watch my video number 1, I cover all the issues you've talked about: stalactite, stalagmite formation. I've got a whole section on that. How it does not take all the largest cave formations can be explained in 4,500 years. Plus those things.
Maybe they can, right? But that's not the point. The point is that the carbon ratios within them align with the carbon ratios found in other things, such as the cores from lakes and the cores in the ocean. So the point is that these things are calibrated with each other, which is why you have these databases that contain non-carbon 14 demonstrations going back 100,000 years or so, and then with carbon 14 measurements in them, allowing us to have an understanding of what the atmosphere looks like. So it's tree rings, it's other layered things like the sea and the lake. The point is that people are really working on this.
Right. I agree.
I feel like I feel like what's of interest is a model that if you're going to present a model for creation, right, then what people want to see is like your model of tree ring growth, like your differential equation, because we have an incredibly strong understanding of how quickly trees grow. I showed you the differential equation earlier, right? Like where in that differential equation do you think that there's an error? I mean, this is a very similar question to the physics. Like, where do you think we have a misunderstanding of the quantum mechanical relationship of the shells of a nucleus? Like, do you think our understanding there is lacking? Like, what do we need to change in the particle physics, or what do we need to change in the differential equation of tree growth in order to have a better model that better matches the data, right?
Okay, let me give you a better model.
Mm-hmm.
6,000 years ago, God created a perfect world. If you read Genesis chapter 1, there was water above the air where the birds fly, above the firmament. I believe there was a crystal canopy, 2 or 3 fingers thick. The Jews have always taught the earth was surrounded by ice, maybe 10 miles up, like a big greenhouse or terrarium or something. That would block UV light. So the animals and plants living under the pre-flood world, before that canopy shattered and collapsed, they would have almost no C14, probably have nothing. We would then get them buried in the time of the flood and dig up their fossils, and we would date them by today's C14 standard, the amount 0.0000765%, when they had 0.0000000. So they're automatically going to date much older than they should, because we're using a rubber ruler. How old is it? How old would you like it to be? So the model would be the first world was perfect. It got destroyed by the flood. Nearly all the fossils we're finding in the ground are from that flood. Animals aren't fossilizing today. That one flood probably fossilized all of them. And the atmosphere before the flood had almost no C14 because of the crystal canopy protecting it. That's the model the Bible teaches. I don't think anybody can prove that wrong. But again, we're over time here, and you still haven't given me any evidence for evolution. Why do you think an amoeba can turn to a pine tree?
Yeah, I'll let you
I'm just trying to
answer
stick
that.
to carbon-14.
Or okay, if you're not going to answer that, then we'll just we'll go ahead and start moving in the Q&A. That was the hour timer there. But I mean, you guys can circle back if any of the questions in the Q&A are relevant to what you guys were talking about. You can dovetail it. And right now we have about 10, 11 or so. You guys get your super chats in. I'm just gonna make a couple quick announcements here, and then we'll go straight into the Q&A. So if you have a Rumble account, if you check out right here, we are on Rumble now. We should be streaming on there currently. We do have a TikTok for clips from the juiciest sections. If you just want to skip to those, you can watch some of the ones we already have up there. We are on Facebook now as well. And then the last one, I believe, here is a quick Yonaguni shout out. They are one of the sponsors for DebateCon 8 in Dallas coming up. A couple other sponsors are going to be the Roar Project as well as Main First Project. So check those all out. Yonagunis, by the way, is Latin Asian cuisine in Puerto Rico, Aguadilla, if you're ever there. So Sideshow Bob, the owner of this restaurant, will be at DebateCon. You can come meet him. He helps us out. And I do believe we got a quick ad read that is sponsoring James here. This is Farmeasy Bank, farmeasybank.com, I guess. So they basically, if you're wondering where you can get prescriptions delivered straight to your house of things like ivermectin, fenbendazole, Vildina, and weight loss products, including oral semaglutide, then Farmeasy Bank will help you out. They use fast, secure shipping directly to your doorstep, and James can vouch for them. He's used Farmeasy Bank himself for top-tier discounts. Those are his words. His words, himself. I'm not putting words in his mouth. But with that being said, check them out. And thank you guys for sponsoring the live streams for the next little bit. And DebateCon 8, get your tickets if you have not gone. But if you guys have some questions for the Q&A, send those in now. We're going to start that up. First comment is from Creationist Crybaby 999. They said, Ken Hovind, you say it is inconceivable that macroevolution occurred, therefore it must have been created. Don't you know that you're using God of the gaps?
That makes no sense at all. If I was walking across the parking lot and found a tape dispenser like this, I've got no idea who made it, when they made it, where it was made, but I think it's logical to say somebody made this for a purpose. And no, I think it's logical to say there had to be a designer for this entire universe. one single cell in your body is more complex than the space shuttle. And you want me to believe it formed by chance. I'm sorry, I'm not stupid enough to believe that. You may be, but I am not. I think there had to be a designer. Now, who was it? If I walking across the parking lot, and if I walking through the woods and found an arrowhead, I would know right away it's man-made. It's not a natural object. And I might want to find out who made this, what, which tribe did this and when, and all that kind of stuff. That's when you start inquiry. When you look at anything living in nature, biosphere, anything in plant, microbial, animal, it's mind-boggling, the complexity. I don't have a problem praising God and wanting to understand it. I did a whole series on how different creatures make babies. I asked the evolutionists, would you please explain to me how this evolved? The hippopotamus, the velvet worm. I went through hundreds of creatures. None of them. Atheists didn't take the bait on any of them. How did this evolve? They want me to believe it did, and they want me to pay to have all the kids learn that it did, but they don't have an answer for how it did. There is no scientific explanation for how reproductive processes can evolve separately. Which came first, the male or the female? And how did they find each other? It's mind-boggling. So, crybaby, if you wish to believe that everything happened by chance, you're welcome to it, but that's not science. You have a religion, and you're welcome to it. And I admit mine's a religion. You guys do not admit yours is a religion because you lose your tax funding. I understand real well. But good. Thanks for listening, crybaby. I do pray for you. Got your model right up here, somewhere here. Where'd it go?
They sent you that?
Oh, over there. Okay. I got a model of crybaby. Yeah.
Okay, so
this
is someone you're engaged with often.
He calls into my show. He's welcome to. Here you go. Here we have on our shelf, crybaby right there. Crybaby.
That's a production right there.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Bobby, you're able to get a word in on any comment that's directed at Kent and vice versa. He can comment on comments directed at you or questions directed at you. Just whoever it's directed at, they'll go first. So if you want to respond to that quickly before I move on, I am putting a poll up, guys, in the chat. Stop asking me. I'm working on it. But go ahead, Bobby.
What was the question again?
Basically accusing Kent of using the God of the gaps idea, or I'll read it again. 1 second. It was Kent Hovind says it's inconceivable that macroevolution occurred, therefore it must have been created. Don't you know that you're using God of the gaps? Okay, and you can also just say I agree.
I would agree.
I'll go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'm concerned that we don't have a model, right? And I feel like on the one hand, we have literally differential equations, people doing actual core sampling of trees and various other things. But on the other side, no model. Just a, upsetment that scientists around the world are trying to, understand the way that the world works, right?
All right. I usually do if you guys want to do like a back and forth, you can just keep it short. So if Kent wanted to say something to that, we have enough comments right now to where I can afford that time. But if you want me to move on, Kent, I'll just go ahead and read the next one.
Well, very quickly, I think I do very clearly have a model. God made the world. He made it perfect. And he made it in 6 days, the only way symbiotic relationships work. And he made it with a protective canopy that would prevent C14. The flood of this world the flood of Noah's day destroyed the world. That made all the layers, all the fossils, and polystrata trees running up through all the layers. I cover that model thousands of times. We'll go to my website, drdino.com. We present a very coherent model. The Bible story, exactly as written, is the best model to explain everything we see in nature and in the world.
If your claim is that
dirty tires, don't settle. Go from dirty and dull to deep glossy shine in minutes. Black Magic makes it
carbon 14 before the flood and then carbon 14 after the flood, wouldn't we see a discontinuity in the graphs that we calculate through? Like, let me say it another way. We have animals like elephants. Did they exist before the flood?
Yes, sir.
Did they exist after the flood?
They still do today.
Yeah. So why isn't there a missing collection of ratios that we don't find? Right? In other words, Well, if all the animals in the previous 4,000 years are with respect to the atmosphere after the flood, and then all the elephants before the flood are with respect to the pre-atmosphere, you would see a striking discontinuity in the ratios, right? I
So
mean, I
maybe
could
that's
draw a
why,
picture for you.
that's why we get the wild numbers when they go to date these things, because they're
No,
using
but that
today's ruler and onto something that wouldn't live in today's atmosphere. That's all.
no,
We beat this horse into the ground. But go ahead.
I'm talking about the distribution of the elephants' ratios, right? Like you have a ratio that would date to, sometime in the last 4,000 years, but then you have an astronomically tiny ratio that says it goes to 60,000 years old, right? And your claim is that that was before the flood. Well, then why do we have ratios that go to 30,000 years old, and then another elephant at 20,000 years old, and then another elephant at
Wait,
15,000
wait.
years old, another one at 12,000, right?
How on earth are you dating a ratio with carbon 14? Explain that to the audience.
The ratio of carbon 14 is matched against the atmosphere, like I said. And so
So
if your model of the atmosphere is that the atmosphere had a strong discontinuity in it, then the assumption is that there would be particular ratios we'd be barred from seeing, right?
no, if you dig up a fossil elephant, I don't know, have any Google that? Have any fossil elephants been carbon dated? Why are they
Yes.
finding soft tissue in dinosaur bones? Lots of
They're
examples.
not.
Oh, they're
No,
not.
they're not.
You need to do some more research, Bobby. You're way behind on your research.
No, no.
Allergen,
The
red blood
the
cells,
the
brain cells.
woman that reanimated that mineral deposit using an acid, she says that it was a 65 million year old dinosaur bone. So the person that did that, right, that it
Margaret Schweitzer. Yep.
reanimated a mineral, right? It was a mineral deposit. It wasn't actual material from the dinosaur. She reanimated it using an acid, and she was surprised that it had a behavior similar to that of the ligaments that you would expect in a living creature. She didn't actually find ligaments or blood or flesh. She had mineral deposits that she reanimated using acid. That's an incredible discovery. She says they're 65 million years old, right?
She's wrong. Yeah. Mary Schweitzer. I'll debate her
But
anytime on that.
but she's the one that is
That found it.
producing that paper for you.
Right.
All right, we're
Did
gonna.
you reanimate the minerals using
No,
acid?
where she works, and was she threatened with her job loss if she didn't say something about defending evolution?
There are
This is
plenty
just
of
one example.
creationists that probably should be let go from universities but haven't been, right? Because in general, at
Ah,
universities, we typically respect people and we allow them to continue in their tenured positions. So, no,
see.
her job wasn't in threat.
So there should be discrimination against people who don't agree with your position on billion.
There should be people that are not teaching science that are against the scientific inquiry. Yeah.
Oh, listen, I'm in favor of science. Evolution is not part of science. Evolution's a religion.
It absolutely is.
All right,
Then show me the
It
evidence
certainly
of any.
is.
Where's the scientific evidence of any animal producing offspring other than the same kind? Dogs always have dogs.
We have the relationship we have with respect to the data. We understand the relation. Like I
You're
can
related to
calculate I can calculate the informational difference between my DNA and my brother's DNA, and I can calculate out that it comes out to about one generation. I can calculate the informational difference between your DNA and my DNA, comes out, I don't know, 30 generations ago or 50 generations ago.
Well,
You
Now,
can
what
do
about
that
you?
with different
No,
people, right? We can
no,
also
you
do
said
that
you're
with
related
different.
to a pine tree. How many generations did
Right.
it take you? You and a pine tree are related, you said.
Yes,
Why do
that
you
that
believe that?
goes incredibly far back,
Oh yeah,
incredibly far back. The
long ago,
point
far
is that we don't find, right? We don't find that there's any discontinuities. We find continuous relational variation between every animal on the entire planet. There is no discontinuities to speak of. It's the same
Okay.
thing that I'm saying with the carbon.
we'll let you
If
have
I
the last word on that one, Bobby. I do got to move on.
no,
Sorry to cut you off.
I was just going to say that if we find an elephant that dates to, let's say, 8,000 years old, then the amount of ratio it has means that the ratio is too small to be within the last 4,000, right? But if the ratio is at 8,000, then according to Kent, that period that the animal lived in should have been where there was 0 carbon 14. And so that elephant shouldn't have the ratio it has. There's a discontinuity in what Kent is saying, but we see no such discontinuities. There is no discontinuity
All
of
right.
ratios.
I'm sure we
They
will
continually go back.
we'll make
right?
it back to those points eventually. Next one was a second one from, I believe, Crybaby. He sent another 5. Thank you for the 5. He said, Ken Hovind, gods were responsible for lightning until we discovered natural causes. Your God, that's in quotes, is confined to those parts of the universe we don't know about.
I happen to know my God really well, and I talk to him all the time, and I pray for you, Crybaby. Maybe I should pray for God to use lightning to explain himself to you. I don't know. But yeah, I think that I love studying the natural world. I understand how lightning is produced. And I think God designed an amazing atmosphere, an amazing world. I think the problem with you, Crybaby, is you don't like God's rules for your life. You know, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. I mean, he gave pretty clear commandments. And I've never met an atheist who kept all of those because they want to get rid of God to get rid of his rules. And I've said thousands of times, this is God's planet. He made it. He makes the rules. If you don't like it, go make your own planet. Make your own world and do whatever you want. But this one's his, and he's going to be the judge. And he said he made everything to bring forth after their kind. Dogs have dogs. Cats have cats. There are no exceptions.
All right.
Except for my opponent. My opponent tonight's related to a pine tree. I'd like to see how that happened.
There's plenty of
rebuttal?
classes that'll teach you. There's biology classes, botany classes.
Okay, we'll go on to the next one here. We got Gibby FV4005, who just became a member to the Spectator, so you'll be able to watch all those streams that we do next week. Thank you for your membership. All right, Roopaloop sends $2 and says, if the Bible's not true, do you want to know that?
Oh, I've had 399 debates. If you think there's something wrong with my Bible, something wrong with the creation story, call 855-BIG-DINO, extension 4, and schedule a debate and show me. Show the world how stupid I am. I'd like to see you show me. I've defended the Bible now for 57 years. I think it's true. I think it's flawless. I think it's scientifically accurate. I think God made the world, and you better get ready to face him Judgment Day. I'm trying to help. Now, if you don't see, Pascal's wager would say, I can't lose. If evolution's true and there's no God, I still had a wonderful life. But if I'm right and you're wrong, you're in serious trouble. Pascal's wager, check that out. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I just did a video on Pascal's wager, which
therefore it must be true.
Unfortunately, I don't think it quite does what you're saying, right? Because in general, if I were to accept a deity because of Pascal's wager, I would imagine that the deity knows that I'm only accepting the truth based on Pascal's wager, in which case it doesn't actually do anything towards salvation. So the whole concept of Pascal's wager is not really accurate, right? It doesn't help you in saving. I do have can I share the screen for a second?
What are you sharing?
Just a question that I was writing down for Kent.
Okay, yeah, we'll allow it real quick. Guys, get some more super chats in. We got maybe about 25-30 minutes.
I don't have it as a separate
and
thing.
then also I'm gonna close the poll in about 10 minutes. So go vote.
This is the thing that I'm trying to get at, Kent. This is what a discontinuity would look like. If you were saying, right, that elephants, which have a continual collection of ratios going back in time, right? So in other words, we see a nice continuous graph going backwards, right, in terms of density, okay, with respect to the ratios. You could argue we don't know where the dates are, but the model that you're presenting is that there was a drastically different atmosphere in this section than there was in this section. And if that's your model, there would be a discontinuity. We don't see that discontinuity. So that model doesn't make any sense, right? So you can't have strictly different atmospheres in two different sections of the time backwards in time. Otherwise, there would be a discontinuity of ratios that are inaccessible. Yet we have a evenly distributed set of densities, or evenly distributed set of ratios of basically any creature. Let me put it to you this way. Saber-toothed tigers, right? We don't know of any that existed in the last 4,000 years, right? None of their carbon dating is within the last 4,000 years, right? Meaning that according to your model, all the saber-toothed tigers should have 0 carbon-14 in them, or virtually none, because they all were before the flood. They all died before the flood. But that's not true, because we have plenty of carbon-14 within our saber-toothed tigers, all kinds of carbon-14. And we have a clean distribution of them going backwards. We don't have any within the last 4,000, but we do have saber-toothed tigers, right, with carbon-14 in them. They should have none, right? Okay. Anyway.
All right. Let me stop that. Boom. Boom.
Sorry.
Okay. You can do a quick response, Kent. I'm going to go on to the next question.
No, we beat carbon-14 into the ground here. We'll have to. There's still no evidence of animal changing to another kind of animal. We're still not even on topic for the debate tonight. So go ahead.
All right, Big League.
I mean, carbon-14 is part of the debate.
Only to rescue time. Only to rescue time.
I am happy to state that I'm in ignorance and that I don't know anything about the issue of amoebas turning into humans. We can just grant that for the discussion, but like there seems to be like an uninterest in knowing why saber-toothed tigers have carbon-14 in them. Like you seem to have no concern about that whatsoever.
You just brought it up and I just wrote it down. First of all, I don't know that that's true, what you said. But if it is, I will check it out. And thank you. Okay. Let's go on to it. We got a lot of people waiting super chat. I've had a long day. I'm retired. I'd like to get to bed. But
I feel that. All right. So this next one is from Big League Drew. He said, how would the flood create the oil? Kent?
They can make oil in the laboratory in 20 minutes. Biomatter. There's a factory in Texas. I think it's in Houston near where you live. They take turkey guts from one of the big turkey slaughterhouses. I don't know, Butterball or something. They get the guts and the head and the feathers and they press it into oil in 20 minutes. Crude oil. So oil can be made from all kinds of things. I mean, go to the grocery store. There's olive oil and canola oil and cashew oil, and oil can be made from lots of things under pressure. So I think the flood would have buried all kinds of things and under different levels of mud, different amounts of mud, and the pressure of that would turn them to oil. It can be made to oil in 20 minutes. If you watch my video number 1, you get my whole video series for $50. Watch it, copy it, return it, get your money back. You can watch most of them online, drdino.com on my website. I just want to get the truth out. So oil is a great indication the Earth is not billions of years old because of the pressure still in the oil wells. They drill down and squirts up with a gusher in some places. That pressure should have dissipated, cracked the ground. They've done studies on the amount of rock, the overburden, and the pressure it can handle. You get 30 tons per square inch. It would crack anything. Anyway, so the oil is a good indication the Earth is not billions of years old, and oil can be made from many, many different things. Google that, Joseph. How many different products can be turned into oil? I'm going to wildly guess it's over 50. Okay, that's certainly a lot. So I think the oil is down there in the ground today from plants, mostly from animals that drowned in the flood. I think the Earth before the flood was largely habitable, mostly land. The Earth, and today it's mostly water, but it was mostly habitable from pole to pole. There were lots more animals. I mean, like hundreds of times more animals than we have today. They drowned in the flood, and that's where the oil came from. That would be my model.
Quick response, Bobby, and then we'll go on to the next one, if you want. You're not required to respond to every one of them.
Sure. I would just say that the reason we don't find any carbon-14 in oil is because it's been in the ground for an incredibly long time. It probably had carbon-14 in it in the past, right? But the carbon-14 decayed, and that's why that's not there, right?
All right. Well, we could leave it at that. Roopaloop, we have a good amount to get through from even just this one chatter here. Roopaloop sends 5 and says, In court, you'd share exhibits ahead of time, question experts, and experts would be disqualified for lack of expertise. Creation would lose every time. What do you have to say to that, Kent?
He's dreaming.
And then he also
well, he sent maybe smoking something. I don't know.
He sent 2 more back to back. You can kind of address them all at once if you want. The next one was, Kent, can you define evidence? And the last one was to Kent and axiomatic reasoning. True/false. If not P, then P and not P. That's just like a logical equation there.
If not P, P and P. Is there a parentheses?
There is no parentheses there. I think he's just asking, is this true or false? If not P, then P and not P. Which one of the laws of logic is?
Well, it depends on where I don't know it off the top of my head. I'd have to write it down and take a look at it. But in general, right, the fact that there's a lack of parentheses in 2 operations is kind of a problem, right? You need to have parentheses to tell me which operation is being done first.
What was the first question? I got lost here.
Yeah, there is no PEMDAS for logical operators, right? You have to put parentheses.
The first one was more of a statement on exhibits in court being shared ahead of time, questioning experts, and experts would be disqualified for lack of expertise. Creation would lose every time. He followed it up with, can you define evidence?
Well, I think scientific there's very, ask any lawyer will tell you there's various kinds of evidence. Okay, so I don't know if I can define it in a hurry in a debate when we're running out of time, but I don't think I need to. It's intuitive when we see complex things that somebody intelligent had to design it. If you're coming down to southern Alabama and you see thousands of trees in straight lines, which you'll see all over here, it is logical to say somebody planted these. This doesn't happen in the woods. They're all lined up because they're all planted at the same time. They're tree farms. They do that because they grow faster and straighter to make telephone poles and lumber. So I think the evidence that somebody did that is the fact that they're in straight lines. The evidence that each cell in your body is more complex than the space shuttle, and the DNA code in one person's body would go across the solar system twice. That doesn't happen by chance. If you wish to imagine that, that's fine, but don't call it science. Evolution's a religion you believe in. That's wonderful.
Real American Freestyle is changing the game. RAF Georgia, RAF 11, and RAF Next Gen.
So they're different. There's very different. Ask any lawyer. What is evidence? That's a very broad question. Okay. So there's evidence that can be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. Evidence that may have other interpretations. So I think that's way off topic for the debate tonight.
Fair.
Yeah, I would just point out that evidence as presented in a court typically has standards that are along the lines of, beyond a shadow, beyond reasonable whatever, right? These particular standards are specific to a court, right? And specific to, witnesses and things along those lines. This is not how we conduct scientific research. Scientific research is typically done with respect to testable, verifiable predictions and peer-reviewed literature. So when someone writes a paper and it's got like 6 authors on it, typically all 6 of those authors have worked on different parts and they've collaborated over months. They then submit this blindly to other researchers that attempt to replicate some of the experiments or look over some of the data and verify that it is correct. It then gets published in a journal, right? And if a year later, some particular, lab of students discovers that there's some type of incorrect, experiment going on, then generally such a paper is retracted, right? Or a additional publication is put forth to talk about the errors and the corrections that need to take place in order for that data to fit the particular modeling. The point is that scientific research and scientific development is not at all similar to how we talk about evidence within a court.
All right.
I understand the sentiment, right? But they're not at all the same.
All right, we gotta move on here. Sean Hardesty sent $10. Thank you, Sean. He says, arguing that tree ring theory supports evolutionism because a lot of doctors study it is so laughably goofy. Rebuttal, Bobby?
There's 35 countries represented at an international conference that have been studying tree ring information for decades. You literally have hundreds of researchers that have been in this specific field. You have hundreds more students that are interested in entering into this field. You have research programs at different universities. I think one of them that I looked up was the University of Arizona. They have a tree ring lab at the University of Arizona. You can go to Arizona, you can talk to the people that work in this one tree ring lab, and there's hundreds of them around the planet, right? The point is that people are after the truth. They want to understand how to categorize these, how to measure them, how to model the growth of trees. They do things like survey leaves and survey, the bark and survey different trees and look at the different rates of growth. The point is that these things are related to each other. You have botanists working with chemists, working with physicists that all have a cohesive model in how these different parts of science interplay and work with each other, right? Independent lines of evidence that all point to the same information, right? Which is that carbon-14 works and it allows us to date things into the past. Again, the same dating method of how you know how old the different manuscripts of the Bible are is used for dating the fact that saber-toothed tigers all died out 10,000 years ago,
All right,
right?
we'll let Kent
So,
respond to that.
yeah, sorry.
Okay, put my slides up there, Joseph. Billions of farmers through all of human history have discovered when they crossbreed their cows, they
Billions?
get cows. When they plant corn, they get corn. The peer-reviewed Bible I have beside me says they will bring forth after their kind, after their kind, after their kind, after their kind. There are no exceptions to this. PhD scientists by the thousands have worked with raising animals, raising plants, and they've noticed they bring forth after their kind, exactly like the Bible said would happen. It's in there 20 times in the first 7 chapters. So I think all the peer-reviewed, all the PhD scientists who are dendrochronologists would say pine trees always make pine trees. Always. There are no exceptions.
Mhm.
Now, I don't think they would agree. I hopefully would not agree that they're related to a pine tree, but you wish to be one. So, okay.
Well, we didn't come from pine trees. Pine trees are a modern creature, right? Or I should say a modern,
Life
thing
form,
that's
life form.
alive, right? Life
Okay,
form,
well,
sure.
I'm pointing out the peer-reviewed journal says they will bring forth after their kind. Nobody has ever observed, science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Nobody's observed this not happening.
But nobody's
you want-
observed. Nobody's observed a nucleus, right? We have models and we have the response data of input that we do.
This is a
have
model. This is a model that humans came from an amoeba. That's never been observed. It's not science. This is not a
what is the-
scientific model. It's a fairy tale.
what is the diameter of an electron? What's the diameter of it?
Gee whiz, who knows? Pretty small.
0, right? It's a fundamental particle.
All right, we'll move on.
Way off topic on that one.
It's gonna happen in the super chats occasionally.
Sorry.
Like this one. I mean, I guess it is kind of related, but S-Tone 3.14 says, question for Axio, what is a woman?
Axiom?
But they wrote Axio.
Axio, gotcha. I think
they had
meant
limited
axiomatic,
characters.
but that's fine. Or Bobby, right? In general, I would just go with the biology definition, right? I mean, it's typically, what is it? A human that, aligns with what they think femininity is. Just like, men are people that align with what they think masculinity is.
Anything to add to that, Kent?
If you don't know what a woman is, talk to your mother. I'd be willing to bet $5 that she knows.
I don't know if you want to go down the trans discussion, but I'd be happy to with you. Just we're going to end up talking about, parts. So,
Well, if you think there's more than 2 genders, I'll pay you $50 to come milk our bull. I want to video you flying over the fence.
Yeah, well, the disrespect that you're providing to people, like, what do you do with someone that's XY and, has a vagina, right?
Here we go. Here we
Like
go. Okay.
you just decide they don't exist because you think that they don't exist. I think that that's just, disrespectful to the human race.
Okay.
That was unexpected, Kent. That was cinema, pure cinema on the YouTube live stream here. You can't predict stuff like
Please.
that.
Come milk the bull.
All right.
I'll make it up 100.
Okay. Next one is from Ropealope. Don't take that bet, Bobby. I said don't take that bet. Ropealope says
$50.
in court, Kent would not be able to make random factual assertions without pointing to expert or fact witness testimony or an admitted document. So you would need witness testimony or admitted documents to be able to make random factual assertions, is what he's saying.
Okay, put my slides back up. Okay, where's the witness testimony to any scientist, any non-scientist, any thinking human being who has ever observed this not happening? Everybody observes, whether a professional farmer or an amateur farmer, they know cows produce cows. Always, no exceptions. You might get a big cow or a little cow, but you're going to get a cow every time.
Evolution never says that it doesn't.
Evolution says cows came from an amoeba.
Yeah,
That's
an ancient amoeba. You mean a modern amoeba?
It's not observable.
No.
It's not science.
No,
That's my point.
Nothing on Earth today came from a modern amoeba, right? An ancient one, certainly.
So an ancient amoeba was able to turn to a cow. Here we have the amoeba. The amoeba is the founder of all the animals and plants today.
Yes.
Here we have cows. Cows came from an amoeba. You believe that?
Yeah, this is our ordering of the tree of life, right? How we categorize things.
Where's the scientific evidence for that?
There's all kinds of scientific evidence.
Well, show me one, please, okay? Just your best one.
I wanted to talk about carbon-14 tonight. That's what I prepared for. But I did present, right, the fact that taxonomical ordering and DNA information is tightly coupled together. I even alluded to, but maybe I didn't say it, right, that in general, we have a fairly thorough understanding of like neural networks and machine learning and algorithmic convergence, right? So when you indicate these things of like that there's specialized information within the DNA of humans or something, these are just not correct, right? We literally in computers randomize the inputs and then through basically a forced environment, right, where we're learning on the data, cause it to converge towards that particular outcome that we're after. And so it is not unexpected that you would have random chemicals coupled with the preservation of those chemicals, right? The replication process, the preservation process, that wouldn't just naturally converge to something. No one is saying that we know exactly what it's going to converge to, or that there was some predetermined way in which it would converge, but the idea that convergence would be tightly coupled to the environment that it's in and be forced to adapt to that particular environment, that's not unexpected whatsoever. We do it in computers all the time. We have language.
Imagination.
Right? Like this is well understood.
Put my slide back up.
All right, after this, we'll go to the next one.
As a teacher for 15 years with a PhD in education.
I was a professor with a PhD in mathematics.
You didn't let me finish. As a teacher of 15 years experience with a PhD in education, I would give you an F for your snow job you just gave. You didn't answer the question. Where's the scientific evidence of an animal ever producing other than their same kind? My book says they're always going to produce after their kind. That's what everybody's seen. That is science. This is not science. This is all, you ready, Joseph? We didn't do it yet tonight. This is all nothing but magic.
Okay.
You're welcome to have it, but it's not science.
Next one from same guy. He sends two back to back. He said, Kent, if born in 1200 in Damascus, would you be Muslim?
Not for very long. I think I'm too smart for that.
All right. Next question was, Kent, do you think beaches and mountains form naturally?
Sometimes. Sometimes they're formed rapidly. You know, it can be rapid plate tectonics that thrust them, mountains thrust, their strike falls, slip falls, and all that stuff. So yeah, you can get like, you know, volcanoes certainly can form rapidly.
And this
beaches can form rapidly.
This was
So
this.
that's too
Sorry.
broad of a question.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there. This is the same commenter who asked if you found out the Bible, or if the Bible wasn't true, would you want to know? He said he responded to that, to your comment with another 5. Thank you, Rupaloop. He says, Kent, I'm not asking whether you have good reason to believe the Bible. If the Bible is not true, do you want to know that?
Absolutely. Show me where it's not true. Show me. Is there anything not to put it back up, Joseph? Is anything not true about this? They bring forth after their kind, after their sort. Can you show me any examples where that's not true? Every baby, we just had a lamb born yesterday on our North 40. Come see the baby lamb. It was born to a sheep. Interesting. Nothing else. I predicted it too. When that sheep was pregnant, I predicted it's going to have a lamb. Bingo, dead on, right? Exactly right. Our chickens have baby chickens. Our cows have baby cows. There are no exceptions. If you wish to imagine something else, that's imagination. That's not science. Get it out of our schools, please.
Evolution doesn't say, and I know you've been told this in the past, evolution doesn't say that you leave the kind that you were in, right?
So is a bacteria the same kind of animal as a whale?
The whale is in that same category, yeah.
A whale is the same kind of creature because it's eukaryote. I know about the cell, okay?
Yes,
So,
ancient bacteria, yes.
Billions of years. All life forms are related and came from an amoeba or bacteria or protozoa, whichever you want to start with.
Ancient amoeba. It's not the same as a modern amoeba.
So they're different.
Ancient. Yes.
So what
yes,
did
they're
the
different.
ancient amoeba have
a protocell, an ancient protocell is nothing like what a modern cell would be like.
Really? How do you know that? Could you show me one?
We have laboratory I'm not an origin of life researcher, but again, just like dendrochronology, there are hundreds of scientists working on specifically origin of life research. They demonstrate different types of chemical reactions. They do different environmental experiments, right? They demonstrate various aspects of what we would expect in a model of the origin of life, right? From the autocatalytic chemical reactions all the way up to the way in which information progression would occur, right? Typically there's a hypothesis of like RNA being used as the first type of information carrying device rather than DNA, right? But again, I'm not an origin of life researcher. I typically defer to experts when I see a cohesive understanding and relationship that a particular field of study has had. When you see things like conferences, thousands of research papers, hundreds of PhDs that are corresponding with dozens of other fields of study, this is a strong indication of models, differential equations, testable, reproducible predictions, right? This is a demonstration of science at its work. The same science that gives you literally the technology you're using right now is the same science of why we know, right, that carbon-14 works the way that it does. And I don't know.
All right, yeah, we got 3 questions left, Kent. Appreciate your time. Bobby, appreciate your time. This next one is from Antonio Aninguez. He sends 5. He says, Kent, the first person to formulate the Big Bang Theory was a priest. Was he somehow paid by atheists to subvert God like you claim?
Oh, I didn't say that. I don't know. There's no evidence for it. Show me you can't squeeze a cup of water into a dot smaller than a pinpoint. They want the whole universe in that dot. Big Bang is the dumbest religion ever invented. Tell them I said so. Dumb to believe everything came from a dot exploding. Now, you can believe it if you want, but it's stupid.
You call it evolutionism. Would you call that Big Bangism?
I guess, yeah. I call it stupid, basically.
We don't have a model of the singularity to the beginning part of the universe, right? So the earliest moment of the universe that we're able to understand with respect to modeling, right, goes from the cosmic microwave background radiation to some point in the past in which the universe was infinitely large, very hot, and very dense. That's the furthest that we're able to model. The moment we go back even a single moment more, our models literally generate black holes everywhere. So we're not able to have a model that goes all the way back to a singularity. We're not sure how we would be able to do that. That would probably require a relationship or a general theory of everything where we have put together, relativity and particle physics, that both of them have come together. So quantum field theory and, Einstein's equations, right? We currently don't have that. And so the furthest back we can go is when the universe was infinitely large, very hot, and very dense, right? That's as far as we know. So going all the way back to the singularity, sure, I can grant that, but it's probably, we don't know that.
And one, check Walmart, aisle 17. They got models.
Well, I'd rather just say I don't know rather than say I do.
All right, we got 2 left. Frankfurter 63 sent $20. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate that. He said, Ken, it takes millions of years to form diamonds. Not a question, but it's something to.
There's a very large article on that exact topic on ICR.org, Institute for Creation Research.org in Dallas, Texas. I suggest you read that. You're mistaken.
You want to say something real quick before I go on to the last question, Bobby?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Last question is for you. Even Lord sends 5. Even Lord, thank you for your donation. Appreciate it. He said, Axiom, you argue that young Earth creationists should be removed from academia. Do you think all the Marxists should also be removed?
Marxists. So there's a difference between teaching different economic theories or different government theories versus taking positions that are, anti-science, right? When you're literally hand waving away, that all the dendrochronologists don't understand tree rings as well as I do, right? Then you're literally seeding doubt into incredibly well-established scientific, scientific fields, right? So like the point is that when you compare something like communism to something like the Earth is 6,000 years old, these are just not even remotely even similar, right? One is literally talking about a particular government or a particular political position, right? And the other one is literally just completely disregarding, decades upon decades and hundreds of years of modeling and mathematics and physics. And so the latter should have quite a bit more concern. Now, if you're a creationist and you're teaching about communism, that's probably a different story. But when you're a creationist attempting to teach science, right, and you're literally doing things like pretending that, trees don't have annual tree rings and that we can't match them up together, that's just dishonest.
All right. I think that is all of the super chats here. Yes, indeed. Okay. Thank you guys, whoever else became a member of the channel. I see 1, 2, 3, about 10, 15 people just became members at the debater level, the spectator, and the final word, respectively. So yeah, you guys will all be able to watch the live streams next week. It's going to be awesome. This is our biggest debate con yet. And it's going to be 3 days, starting with the pregame the day before the official 2 days. And then the next 2 days, if you have a VIP pass, you'll get lunch. You'll get to get autographed copies, pictures, you get to sit and have lunch with the debater you choose if there's any room left at those tables. I think we sold out and had to add about 30 more tickets for you guys. So we do have a little bit more space. So it's the biggest one yet. It's going to be a lot of fun. I do believe there's a link in the description if you want to help us beef up the security for all the debaters. That is costly. It would help us out a lot. All your dono chats help out, so appreciate that. And then we'll turn it over to these guys. Tell us where you can find y'all's stuff here on YouTube or anywhere else. Kent, go ahead and go first.
drdino.com, drdino.com is our website. You can see we're on about 10 different channels. We broadcast live 9 o'clock every morning, Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock every night. Always take questions, call in, a Q&A. We come visit us in Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. We love dinosaurs. We think God made them in 6 days with Adam and Eve. The Noah took them on the ark, probably babies. They've always lived with man. If you get my video series, $50, 18 hours, this answers almost all the questions that come up tonight. My video number 7, Q&A, has a whole section on carbon dating and how the light from the stars got here, etc. I believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. I believe we're going to stand in front of God one day and face him. And I hope Bobby gets ready for that day. He's going to die and be dead for a long time. I don't want to see you go to hell. I'll pray for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bobby, go ahead and let us know where to find your channel or website or anything that you do online.
Yeah, so I'm new to social media. I'm never really done this before, so it's all brand new. But a few months ago, right? For past 6 months, I've been trying to have conversations with people, help them with their misinformation and disinformation and this sorts of stuff. Just have conversations, right? But then I started posting some of them online, and people appreciate my detailed analysis. I can write up equations and solve them if people would like on the fly, right? I'm a mathematician, was a professor, taught carbon dating, right, as a professor, Anyway, yes. So please, follow me, like, subscribe. I have a Discord. I also have a YouTube at Axiomatic Reasoning. You can find all the links at my YouTube. I have an Instagram, Axiomatic Reasoning. I have a Facebook, Axiomatic Reasoning, TikTok. I have a bunch of different platforms that I'm on. Please, feel free to follow, like, subscribe, join the Discord if you'd like to chat with me. I've been trying to go live about twice a week and talk with all kinds of different people on even communism and, creationism and all the other types of things, right? So anyway,
All right.
I did want to thank Kent for agreeing to chat with me. Maybe we could do it again sometime, right? But I have a curiosity. Would you be interested in any of the papers I presented today? I could email them to you if you'd like.
I think I'm swamped right now. I saw what you showed. If I get time, I'll go back and look at those. But would you be interested in the paper? Would you be interested in the paper that I showed you?
I have several copies of those.
That was a good one. Awesome. Well, I appreciate both of your guys' time and for coming on, making the time, being respectful. Definitely easy to get off the rails on debates like this, and you guys let each other talk very well, and I much appreciated that. It makes my job easy, and the chat enjoys the conversation flow a lot better. So yeah, you guys have a wonderful night. Kent, have fun with what you're doing there.
Right.
Summer camper or something?
Yep.
Right on.
It's amazing.
One quick thing, I will be jumping on my Discord momentarily, and we'll be on for several hours if people want to come chat with me.
Yeah, guys, if y'all want to go in there, learn about some tree rings and things, go join us Discord. I'm sure there's a lot more than that. All right, guys, y'all take it easy, chat. If you haven't got your tickets to DebateCon, this is the last time I'll tell you to go ahead and do it. All right, y'all have a wonderful night.
Thank you.